Hi, it's time for this week's edition of What I Learned This Week. And I'm cheating a little bit because I technically learned this last week, and then I left for my trip, and then, you know, bourbon. But even still, I'm pushing ahead because I learned it, so I might as well share it. So last week before I left for Louisville, I talked about National Mojito Day. I did a travel inspiration for Cuba. One of the things that I found was that you can't use your credit cards in Cuba. So then I decided to do a little bit of deep dive on basically how you pay for things in Cuba. And I'll tell you, kind of complex. That's why I wanted to share it with you. Now, the reason why you can't use your credit cards is there still is an official embargo in place for Cuba. Because of that, Cuban banks don't recognize American-based credit cards. So you're going to need cash for your trip. Now, here's where things kind of get hairy. And I'm going to start off with the top. If I was planning a trip for Cuba for myself, I'm going to go through one of my travel partners that specializes in planning trips for Cuba because there are so many moving pieces and things that are complex. What I'm saying is, if this is something that you want to plan to do, definitely reach out to a travel advisor. So let's talk about cash. Now, some sources said, yeah, US dollars are taken. And then some people said, no, it's not. One of the things that they recommend is either taking Canadian money or euros. So you want to get that before you go to Cuba because obviously doing an exchange in Cuba is going to be way more complex. From what I could find, euros are the most widely accepted, so you're going to be probably the safest with a euro. So there's actually two exchange rates. There is the official exchange rate, and that is ruled by, and I'm just going to give you initials, it's CADECA, CADECA. That is the government's official exchange rate of Cuban pesos against the dollar, the euro, the Canadian dollar, and all the other currencies that are out there. Then there's the black market rate. Now, the black market rate is set by the vendors, the restaurants, the shops, because they will take your money from you directly. Best case scenario, they're going to honor the official rate, but a lot of times they don't because they're going to have to exchange this money as well. Now, CADECA has their own website that you can go to and look at and see the official rate. There actually is a black market website for the black market rate, and that's El Toque. Again, if you're using a travel agent and you're there with a group or a guide, they can also advise you of that as well. So how much money should you take with you? Now, it kind of depends upon whether or not have you prepaid for your hotels, your flights. Again, when you're working with a travel agent, usually that stuff is going to be taken care of in advance for you. Now, in terms of walking around money, I saw a couple different travel companies that work with Cuba saying $50 a day per person works well. Another one gave a range from like $40 a day per person to $120 a day per person, depending upon if you like to eat more expensive restaurants or if you're looking to buy products that maybe are going to be a little bit more on the expensive side. Keep in mind that when you are entering Cuba, you have to declare anything over $5,000. Now, for some things like tipping or small vendors on the street, you might need Cuban pesos, but it is not recommended to get Cuban pesos while you're there. First of all, it's very difficult to get them, and it's still technically not legal for U.S. citizens to trade their money for Cuban pesos. When you are buying things in restaurants and in stores, very often you will be getting change in Cuban pesos. So all sources say that'll be enough for all the small expenditures, anything small you might buy on the street. And then there's one more wrinkle to all of this, which is some places like medical facilities, grocery stores, they're cashless. You can buy like prepaid credit cards like you can in the United States. You can buy them directly with US dollars, euros, and now you've got Cuban pesos on like a gift card, credit card. Now, the only wrinkle to that is they are non-refundable, so you have to be careful how much you buy with them because you're not going to be able to return them. So, did this confuse you more, make things easier to understand? That's the question. I think for me, reading through all of this, it just made me realize how complex it is going to someplace like Cuba and needing the experience of professionals who have worked within Cuba and are in Cuba themselves to really help make this a trip that's going to be seamless and easy for you. So that's it for today's What I Learned This Week or last week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Bye.